This is Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist Assemblyman from New York's 36th District and the next mayor of New York City. During his campaign, Mamdani revealed his plan to help New Yorkers with the price of groceries.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way.
So just a quick fact check. As mayor, Zohran Mamdani isn't going to be able to control this so-called dynamic pricing, i.e. basic supply and demand. But let's continue.
I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce.
So longer wait times and reduced choice. Sounds fantastic.
We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores.
Wait, New York City is giving city funds to corporate grocery stores? I'm not so sure.
These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you. They'll partner with small businesses and nearby farms and sell at wholesale prices.
So New York City is going to buy at wholesale prices and sell at wholesale prices. Because magic or something.
City-run grocery stores, I've proposed a pilot program of one store in each borough. These are 5 stores in total. The total cost of this is $60 million.
So each store is going to cost $12 million in taxpayer dollars, all so that New Yorkers can wait in a Soviet Union-style line for hours just to save 15 cents on an avocado. And sorry, limit 1 per customer.
The cost of this is $60 million to set up one store in each borough. So that's 5 stores as the pilot program. Now, that should be compared to the city's existing program called City Fresh, where they're set to spend $140 million subsidizing corporate grocery stores.
Okay, so the program he is referring to is not called City Fresh. It's simply called Fresh, which stands for Food Retail Expansion to Support Health. He's seemingly confusing the name with the grocery store chain named City Fresh Market. He's going to be a great mayor. But Mamdani is also confused about what the Fresh program is and what it does. According to NYC.gov, it provides zoning and financial incentives for the establishment and retention of grocery stores in underserved communities. And according to New York City's Economic Development Corporation, those financial incentives aren't cash incentives, they're tax breaks, which include reducing building and land taxes for up to 25 years, waived city and sales tax on material used for construction and renovations, and a tax reduction on mortgages. And yet Mamdani claims that the city is giving away $140 million to grocery stores.
Municipal grocery stores, I proposed a pilot, 1 in each borough, that's 5 in total, at a total cost of $60 million, less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets at a cost of $140 million.
Again, the city isn't spending anything. So where's he getting this number? Well, on NYC's Economic Development Corporation website, there's a claim that $140 million is the amount of money that's been invested into the city's economy through the Fresh program. So for clarity, that's $140 million in private investment, not money granted by the city to grocery store owners.
$60 million, less than half of what the city's already set to spend.
So Mayor Zohran thinks that $140 million is a line item on an annual budget that's just sitting around waiting to be spent, when in reality, it's the amount of money that's been invested since the Fresh program was launched in 2009.
These are 5 grocery stores that would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion.
Guys, it's only $60 million. Who cares? It's just money.
It costs less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets without any guarantee of cheaper prices, any guarantee of collective bargaining agreements, or that they accept SNAP or WIC.
First of all, every supermarket in New York City accepts SNAP and or WIC, unless it's like a Trader Joe's or an Aldi, which don't carry WIC-approved items. Mamdani is trying to justify his plan by fear-mongering. We give them millions of dollars, and they might not take your food stamps. Second, he's crapping on businesses that don't have unions. But what else would you expect from a democratic socialist?
And ultimately, The reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting.
But he's not telling you the entire story. First, let's look at the example of the municipal-owned grocery store in Kansas.
The city has finalized the purchase of Stubbs Market, the only general grocery store in Erie. The former owners of Stubbs retired and couldn't find a buyer, so the city stepped in to prevent Erie from becoming a food desert.
3 years and 9 months later.
A city-owned grocery store in Erie, Kansas is going to be operated by a new company after years of struggles.
Years of struggle, you say?
The city of Erie is leasing the Erie Market to River Grocery LLC. The city purchased the store in 2020 with hopes of keeping a local grocery store in the area. But according to city staff, owning the store is difficult and costly for the city.
The reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas.
We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting.
So here's some background. Back in 2023, the city of Chicago announced a feasibility study regarding opening a city-owned grocery store and commissioned the Economic Security Project, a progressive nonprofit, to run that study. So we already knew what the end result was going to be.
I look at the feasibility study in Chicago, which found that we could do this in an urban setting.
But according to the Chicago Tribune, as of January 2025, the city of Chicago has not released the feasibility study, despite previously saying that it would. In other words, Mamdani hasn't personally seen this feasibility study because it hasn't been released to the public. Mamdani is basing his opinion off of a Chicago Tribune article that touts portions of the study's findings, but is very sparse on detail. But it did reveal the following. The study recommends that the city pursue some version of a municipal-owned store or stores, and finds such stores could even turn a profit. It also suggests the city not attempt to operate a supermarket itself, but rather partner with a for-profit operator, a nonprofit operator, or a co-op. In other words, he's overselling the study, which again, he hasn't read, and that study is not quite recommending what Mamdani is pitching. Regardless, if it was so feasible and urgent, then explain why the city of Chicago is backing off the plan to open city-owned grocery stores, and instead is moving towards the idea of a city-owned public market.
From my understanding, it seems like Chicago just recently decided not to go with the city-run grocery store and maybe do like a public market sort of a thing instead. And then the Kansas store, it required, it seems from my understanding, a lot of volunteer work, donations to sort of get it going.
You know, what we are seeing in our city is an incomparable capacity to deliver on this kind of a promise.
But using inspirational language can't hide the fact that city-owned basically means taxpayer-funded. And the fact is, we've seen this movie before. Megan McArdle of the Washington Post writes, "It seems bizarre in the year of our Lord 2025 to be debating whether the government should run the grocery stores. History has thoughtfully answered this question with multiple experiments, from the old Soviet Union to modern-day Venezuela. The answer is no, absolutely not. Are you crazy?"
So you're not looking at some like Soviet Union grocery stores on every corner that are going to be run by the government.
Did you see how Aaron Burnett tries to help fight back against criticism of Mamdani's plan? You're not looking at Soviet Union type grocery stores, right? I mean, come on, that'd be silly.
No, what I'm looking at is how to solve the very clear twin crises of affordability when you go to the grocery store and food deserts, which disproportionately impact Black and brown New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs.
However, Megan McArdle points out that this isn't actually a real issue. Almost everyone in the city has a grocery store within walking distance, except for the inmates at Rikers Island and the residents of a few outlying neighborhoods in Queens. There's no obvious market gap for the city to fill.
Where I've heard directly from New Yorkers who say, why is it that I can find 6 fast food restaurants in a 5-block radius, but I can't find a place to buy groceries?
So not having a grocery store within a 5-block radius is equal to a food desert. I'm sorry, but that is completely insane. Also, you know that services like Instacart exist, right? And you know they accept SNAP benefits, right?
So the core of this is cheaper groceries as a guarantee.
So future Mayor Mamdani is guaranteeing that groceries will be cheaper at his Soviet Union type grocery stores than everywhere else in the city. And Yasmin Tayag of The Atlantic is skeptical, because nothing exactly like Mamdani's plan has ever been tried before in a large city. No one can be certain whether it will really be able to sell more affordable food, let alone help address food insecurity and health disparities in the city. What Mamdani has proposed is a $60 million experiment with New Yorkers as test subjects. Megan McArdle writes, "Nor is there any reason to think that the government can make the food in its stores more affordable than what's available privately. The grocery business, by contrast, is one of the most hyper-competitive and efficient parts of our economy, with profit margins that have historically averaged around 1% to 3%. But forget about that, guys. Mayor Mamdani guarantees the cheapest groceries around, and he's gonna do it not because it's reasonable, but because feelings."
Remember that our agenda is an agenda that must not be dictated by calculus, but by conviction, whether it's BDS, right? Or whether it is the end goal of seizing the means of production.
So no grocery products from Israel. I mean, he's a democratic socialist, so that's a given. And seizing the means of production. You're about to elect a communist mayor, you morons.
I think ultimately I'm guided by outcomes. If this pilot succeeds in guaranteeing cheaper groceries, as I think it will be, then yes, it should scale up. If it doesn't succeed, then no, it shouldn't.
And if they're massive failures, it's fine, because you never know until you try, right? Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time, if there is next time.